Welcome, everyone. I'm just going to be jumping on to go into and explore how the hero's journey and alchemy are interconnected and relate. This is a conversation I really love as we get to see how the hero's journey relates to the alchemical framework. And when I say alchemy, I mean solvate coagula, which means to first dissolve and then coagulate. And so, why this is useful is every time you set a goal or an intention, this is the process of how you can begin to create that in your world. People talk of the secret and manifestation, and they forget this part of the process, which is the dissolve and the underworld. And too many people want to bypass this process of removal of what no longer serves to become the version of you that is capable of having what you want in this world. And so this framework allows you to see how that unfolds as well as going into more detail of what you need to do when you set a goal, whether that be in business, relationship, or just in your life, to actually go through the process so you can become that version of you. So I'm going to figure out how I can share my screen in a second, and potentially I've lost that. So I'm just going to make it up as apparently I don't know how to share screens in here. So there is three sections to the hero's journey as well as alchemy. The first stage is the call. This is about setting an intention or having a desire. So if you're not familiar with the hero's journey, it's something I talk about a lot. It goes back to Joseph Campbell, but as a greater sense, it looks at nearly every myth we have, every story that's told, and it describes the journey that a person goes on throughout their journey to become the hero that is able to save the world, kill the monster, rescue the princess, become the badass boss bitch, whatever it is to just be more of themselves. So this framework originally has 17 stages. People break it down to 12, and I'm going to break it down to 3 to really simplify it and just give it a really quick and succinct message. So the first stage is the call, and this is that original desire where something occurs and you may want more in life, you may want to go after something else or see something more. And this part can be confronting because it is the invitation to change your reality. And in the deeper exploration of the hero's journey, there's always a stage where there's a refusal of the call, where it's like, I don't want to do that. That is confronting. That sounds scary. I don't know if I can do that. And so this is about actually following our heart, our soul, and allowing it to activate and being like, I deeply desire this. I want to go after this regardless of what it will cost. And what it will cost is the current reality that you live within. It will mean you need to surrender what you currently have and enter the liminal or the unknown space. So, this, you don't know what will happen. You don't know if you'll lose everything. You don't know what happens out there. And this is where the fears begin to bubble up because when you leave the current stage of reality and what you know, well, you're entering the unknown, and that's what it is, the unknown. So you don't know what will happen, you don't know who you'll become, you don't know if you'll lose everything, you don't know if you'll die. And there's some primal aspects that come here of like your nervous system begins to activate. It's like, oh my God, I don't know what I'm doing, I'm figuring it out. And this is the stage of development. And this is where you begin to enter the underworld. This is the unconscious parts of ourselves that we enter when we go into liminal space. When I say liminal, it just means an unknown state of consciousness where we are more conscious of the unconscious. So here we may be like, oh my God, I've got to figure out all these things. The habits I normally did routinely no longer work. So if you're someone who's been working a 9 to 5 and you're like, I'm going to start a business, you're going to enter this stage where it's like you need to figure out your stuff. If you've been single and you enter a relationship, this stage is going to play out. If you set a new goal in your business of I want to make a certain amount of income, well, this stage plays out as well. And what happens is you need to take a step into the unknown. And once you're here, there is a sense of like, you don't know what's happening. You don't know what you're experiencing. And your ability to be with the uncomfortability of this is describes how quickly you'll move through it. Because when you're in the underworld, most people want to rush through. They want to get out of there. They want to leave this state of not knowing, because that sounds really good. If you could just know, if you had a guarantee that something was going to occur, if something else you knew, again, because as humans, we often associate safety with the known. And that's how we've been conditioned, that's how we've been taught to be in this world. It's like, if you know what's happening, you will be safe. But that's not truly the case. And if you've ever explored any situation where you don't know what's happening, you've had a new experience, well, you're still safe in that, but the primordial part of ourselves goes like activates and becomes more online. And what we are doing within this process of the unknown is breaking down the fears that had kept us stuck within the known possibilities before. So before the call, you were in a level of reality where you knew what was going to happen. Maybe you had the same routine each day, you went to work the same way, you said the same things, had the same conversations. Your reality was very known. Now, this is great for a lot of people because there's safety here, but our soul craves the unknown. It craves possibility, it craves something more. So when you said yes to that call, what begins to bubble up from the unconscious is the fears that were the box of your reality, because this is how the human operates. We live in a box of reality that keeps us safe, because outside of that, we don't know. And the walls of that are the fears we have that we perceive are real. So if you were to step outside of that, say if you were going to leave a job and start a business, the fear may be, won't be able to provide for myself. I'll go poor. I'll go broke. I'll be homeless, and that's the fear. It's not an actual reality, but that's the fear, and that's the tunnel of reality you're living within because it's safe to work for someone else. So you need to meet that fear. And this is the process of the alchemy, because this is dissolving the lead into gold. So at that point, the lead is the fear. It's the box that's keeping you in this type of reality. And so as you begin to meet this, you'll begin to see, oh, okay, my body feels uncomfortable. There's something more occurring for me. And at times, this will often create or bring up a root wound, a core wound, because this is where a lot of our unsafety stems from a biblical sense. There was that original separation from God where we detached from the divine wholeness of reality. There was an original wound, we can call that the sacred or core wound, which separated us from our innate innocence and our wholeness, and it made us feel separate from the world, and we experienced loneliness as well as separation. This was the original wound. So as we're beginning to step outside of that box, what really it is we're beginning to move up against is this original wound that hurt us, that we experienced was like, oh, this is painful. I don't want to experience this. I want to shut this down. So as you're going against it and stepping into that underlying emotion is probably that fear, probably that unsafety that you experienced during this original wound in your lifetime. And as you go through the underworld more, you'll be meeting more and more fear, pain, anger, sadness, the emotions that you haven't experienced that have lived within your unconscious up until this point. And what you're doing in this period is clearing out these lower vibrational energies so you can actually rise up. And this is the step people don't want to do. When they look at The Secret, it's like, think positive affirmations, but there's not this depth into these lower vibratory emotions that keep people stuck. So you need to begin to alchemize these lower vibrational energies so you can move to these higher states. And that means feeling them. That means being with them. Not because they're bad, not because they're anything, but because they're stuck within your body that's creating a density that needs to be processed so you can rise. Without this, you're going to stay in a version of stuckness, of limitation, of lack, because you simply haven't felt your emotions that have lived in you since the original wound. And so in this opportunity of the underworld, there's ability to begin to experience what is occurring though. And this is powerful. This is powerful to actually begin to cultivate a relationship with your deep wounds, because these are the things you're most afraid of. And when you have relationship with them, you'll realize that the fear is the fear of the emotion that you would feel in the experience. It's not actually the experience itself. When people say they're afraid they'll lose their job, they'll lose their money, they'll lose all of that, it's not the experience or the situation that they're afraid of, it's the experience of the feeling that lives there. And this may be a sense of isolation, loneliness, not good enough, and these are all associated with a core wound, a sacred wound that a person eventually needs to face to become the whole version of themselves. So that's the underworld stage of the journey. When you begin to go through this, you begin to alchemize. This is the solvate part of alchemy. It's the dissolving, it's the letting go, it's the releasing. And this is a big stage for many people where it's like, oh, there's so much stuff coming up, and it can feel like you're in a constant state of process and moving through this. And over time, you'll eventually move to the other side of that. This is where they say, in a lot of movies, you slay the dragon, which is killing the big boss. But really, we're not trying to kill the boss. We're actually building a relationship with our core wound so we can come back to a sense of wholeness. That's ultimately what we're wanting to do. This is what allows you to move from the underworld into what's called the return, which is returning home, returning back to like your mission, your vision, or whatever it was, and coming into relationship with that. It's like, okay, now I've done this deep work. Now I'm ready to receive my treasure and go and share that with the world. Because this is the stage, if you're a mentor or a coach or wanting to do this, this is what we're all doing. We're actually building a relationship with our deep wounds and beginning to share that with the world. This is powerful because this is how we actually lead. We go on the journey first so that then we can teach others how to do the same. That's what's required of us when we're stepping into the unknown. It's like, cool, I want to be out there leading. Well, we need to process these denser emotions to actually get there. And so if you've set a new goal, you've got a new part of your mission, you've got a new stage, this process will occur before you're ready to step into that and can embody it at the deepest level. If you don't do this, you will remain stuck, you will remain limited, and you'll be wondering why you're not achieving it. It's because there was a deeper invitation that you refused to meet. This could be a wound, and it could be a trauma, it could be a sense of stuckness. And until you face that, you'll cycle in this process wondering, why have you not achieved it? Why did you not get there? Why did you not achieve what you wanted to do? Well, there was something you refused to meet in the underworld. You didn't travel to the depths and you tried to bypass something to get to the other side. It's like, if I can just stay on the surface, then I can keep going. But actually, you want to go into the depths. They call it sitting in the well, where you sit in the depths of the grief, of the pain, and you build a relationship, not as a way of sadism or self-punishment, but as a way to get to know yourself and love these parts of you that you've rejected, disowned, and allowing yourself to bring them home. This is what shifts everything, because you're building a relationship with yourself. And when you do this, you're beginning to collect the parts of your psyche, yourself, that have been fragmented, disconnected, and made wrong or bad or labeled in some way, and you're bringing them home. And when you bring them home, you return to a greater sense of wholeness, and from here you get to lead, you get to create, you get to build in a way where you feel whole, where you feel sovereign, where you're more of yourself. So this is the process of alchemy and how it relates to the hero's journey. Enjoy.